Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Gal Swisa Cohen, and this podcast is a production of the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County, New York. And on today's episode of the Israeli Bond on hmTv, we have another very interesting episode of Israel Today mini-series, where we unlock the most pressing and relevant issues in the Israel reality and bridge them for the American audience. So we record this on Thursday, March 5th. This is the 6 days since the joint U.S.-Israel offensive on Iran. And we've seen the reality is changing in front of our eyes in the past 6 days with the collapse of the Iranian leadership, eliminating the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei earlier this week. But also, we've seen a massive ballistic missile strike from Iran to Israel and also for the entire Gulf area. So this topic is very, very, I would say, changing by the minute. We will try to record this episode and hopefully it will be still relevant until it airs. And for this, and to unlock this very complex issue, joining me today is Omri Goshen from Israel. And Omri, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Omri, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am reserve officer in the IDF paratrooper. But also I'm a researcher in the David Institution for Security Policy from the House of the IDSF organization, focusing on national security doctrine, and of course covering this war from a few point of views.
Okay, thank you. And I would want to say and add that Omri is also a family to the Long Island community, having been in this Israeli delegation right before we came in. Your partner, Lirin, was the senior emissary before Dagan, my husband, came. So actually, our relationship goes long way back, and we share same experience, I believe, and you're also very familiar with the Long Island community, and I think this is another very interesting point of view that would help us to unlock this complex situation to explain better to our audience. Okay, so before we dive into this very, very pressing topic of the Iran war, the Iran second war, I want to ask you, I know that this night in Israel has been a very difficult night, many alarms, going into shelters many times. Can you describe a little bit the life of Israeli currently in this war?
Yeah, so right now we're in a unique situation. The market is mostly closed. Only essential workers or can go to work. There are no schools or daycares, so the kids are home, and we're living from alarm to alarm. Basically, have to be very close to a shelter or a safe zone. Once in I don't know, few hours, we have an alarm. Packing our things, getting into the shelter, waiting for it to end, and moving on.
It seems like it's almost like a regular routine, how you describe it.
Well, for the past 2.5 years, it is, but I would say that there's a big change in the current situation, because there's a big difference between getting to a shelter because Hamas or Hezbollah decided they want to launch missiles to Israel, and getting into a shelter because Israel is being active and taking care of its national security, same shelter, very different circumstances.
You mean like the very, very different mentality when you're going to shelter? And you feel it, like you feel that people now in Israel, when they go to shelter, like they go with a better resilience than what they felt in the past 2.5 years.
Definitely, definitely. I think, of course, the day to day routine is pretty much the same. And it's hard when the kids are, home like all day. And it's not a joke. I mean, those ballistic missiles are very heavy, and the damage they can cause is pretty massive. But I think the sense of purpose in the Israeli society are uh, very strong, and the cause is right, you know, in front of our eyes. And yeah, I think it's in the air.
Okay. So as you mentioned, the cousins in front of our eyes. So it leads me right into the first question that I wanted to ask you. Because of you're not only here because you're Israeli in Israel. Also, like this is a very refreshing point of view, but also because of your role as a researcher in the David Institute, and I wonder. So you said that we see the cause in front of our eyes, and I wonder, what is the cause? What is the cause for this war? And most importantly, why now?
Right. So it's a very important question. I think. Well, I think the cause is pretty clear. I mean, um, 2.5 years ago, we saw what can happen when we leave existential threats um, without touching it, without handling it. Of course, I mean the October 7th. And Iran is responsible and is behind everything that's been going on. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, of course, all or most of our battles in the past years, they are rooted in Iran. So the cause is pretty clear, and of course, Iran wants to destroy us. It's not a secret. They've been loud and clear about that for those whole years. Um, I think also you ask why now. I think the diplomatic and the geopolitical circumstances are ready for this campaign, for this shift, and it's a big shift. I mean, um, this is very different from everything we saw in the past. It's not the past 2.5 years. It's really the past decades. The initiative and the active act of Israel here, that moving from respond to her threats, and being the shifter. I mean, the one who shapes the reality in the region. This is a major shift in the security doctrine of Israel. This is basically how a superpower acts, and I think the cooperation with the United States are very significant, and the main cause, of course, is to remove the existential threats in Iran. It's the nuclear capabilities, it's the ballistic missiles capabilities. Of course, the proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis, um, but it's really shaken the tectonic in the whole area. I mean, the Middle East is not going to look the same as it was before this campaign, hopefully, but it's a very big thing.
Yeah, I totally with you that this is a very big it's a very big tectonian shift. Iran is really the source of power to so many proxies around the area. And again, you mentioned that right now, because there were some circumstances, can you hone on a little bit about the circumstances that led us to decide that this is the right time to attack?
Yes. So I think I mean the big change here in this campaign, by the way, even comparing to the last attack in Iran, is that the regime change in Iran is part of the attack goals, right? The last time we in June 25 that we attacked Iran, it was only targeting the nukes and the ballistic missiles. But now we're talking about regime change in Iran. Um, I think um, Trump is ready for that, and that, of course, changing the whole picture. I guess Israel would have done that way before if it has the right back, and I think President Trump and United States of America, it's the right backup to do that move. So yeah, of course, there are some major consequences. I guess we will speak about that in a minute, but that's about the timing of the attack.
So you mentioned Trump, and this is really leads me to a very pressing topic that emerged here in the U.S. The past 2 days or so is so if it's you said it at the end of the day, we wanted to eliminate the threat on the existence of Israel, and Iran was making this threat for decades. So is this war or is this attack is basically Israel dragging US into this war, or it's actually Israel is helping US in a much larger cause or in a much larger mission?
Well, I think it's just an Israeli interests meeting American interests. The Israeli interest, of course, is eliminating the existential threats of Iran. Um, Not just that, but mainly that. The American interest, of course, and we have to remember that all the time. That in the end of the road, there's China, and a lot of other superpowers that shifting this this campaign, and so this move, I believe, in the point of view of Trump, is a footstep on Asia, and toward the Indo-Pacific area, India, and I'll explain. Okay, so Iran location is very unique. Basically, east from Iran you have India, and west from Iran you have Turkey, and then you're already in Europe. One of the biggest projects that's going on and Trump is leading that. It's the IMEC, the Indian Middle Eastern Economic Corridor. Basically, it's a project that meant to connect India or the Indo-Pacific with Europe through Saudi Arabia and Israel. It's a corridor that can lead oil, gas, but also technology, etc. It's a major Western footstep on this region, and it can affect on the oil prices all over the world, and it's basically can hurt or affect the Chinese economy. China, on the other hand of the world, is the number one consumer of Iranian oil. Okay, Iran in the past few years are a sanctioned country, a sanctioned state. So China is getting low price Iranian oil, way under the market prices. That's not good for America, and normalized Iran, of course, has a immediate effect on the oil prices that China gets, and of course affecting and impacting China's GDP immediately. So that's one interest. We also want to connect India to the West. So a lot of big players in this chessboard. We can continue, covering the major players, but there's a lot of going on, and there's a lot of American interest in this region. Radical Iran, it's not good for the West. And that's, I guess that's number one interest for Donald Trump in this area.
So what I understand is that this is not only because of the threat on Israel. It's basically because this radical regime in Iran is not good, not for the economy, and not strategically for the U.S. So most probably that it's not that, if I get you correctly, it's not that Israel dragged the United States into the war. It's just kind of a circumstances that evolved together that pushed both of the countries to collaborate on this.
Well, yes, and I think a good diplomacy is find the common interests and trying to connect them, and I think that's a big success for the Israeli government, for Netanyahu. He managed to get Trump into it. I don't think it's dragging America. I think it's a pure American interest, but it's also an art to find those shared interests, and I think this is the case here. And I also think, and Netanyahu speaks about it a lot, that there is a shift in the paradigm of the whole Western world. It's not quiet at all costs. It's more national interests, and keeping those interests safe. And I think this is what we're seeing right now.
Okay, so very clear. Thank you so much for that. And but as you know, I want to a little bit hone on more on Israel, because at the end of the day, this is the Israeli bond, and I want to understand what are the implications of this war on Israel specifically. Now, the fact is that when after this collaborative attack of Israel and U.S. on Iran, it started to sends missiles to Israel, also to all the Gulf area countries, maybe because it want them to drag into the war and then start attack Israel. But most importantly, and maybe we will talk about this later. But most importantly, what we also seen is that Hezbollah on the Lebanon border of Israel started to attack Israel. Hezbollah that we thought after October 7th and the war and the Iron Sword War that it was already eliminated, now started to lift his head up. And I wonder, you talked about it in your articles that we need to kill the head of the snake, not only the proxies. Now, when we are attacking the head of the snake, all of a sudden the proxy also started to lift his head. So I wonder, what do you think? How will this evolve?
Well, first of all, I think Hezbollah made a huge mistake, and that's a big opportunity for Israel. I mean, yeah, the head of the snake is the most important thing to decapitate. We knew Hezbollah is not completely eliminated, but it's not the same organization we knew before October 7th. But as we can see, he still got capabilities. He's still sending drones and missiles to the northern Israel. And this is the opportunity for Israel to eliminate Hezbollah completely. It's not, getting to each and every member of Hezbollah and eliminate him, but it's making sure the Israeli border is really safe. And there's an important movement in Lebanon. We also hear the Lebanese government speaks against Hezbollah in the media and preventing them from attack. They're not really can force them not to attack, but at least they say they do not want any involvement of Hezbollah. They're cooperating with Israel, with the Iranian figures in Beirut, for example. They order them out of the country. Israel needs to seize this opportunity, taking far more land than it is right now, and clearing the southern Lebanon villages. We've been there. I've been there personally last year. There's a lot of work to be done.
So do you think that the IDF will so you say that this is an opportunity to really finish like what we started with Hezbollah. So do you think that the Israeli army is going to now start another war on the northern border with Hezbollah again?
Well, it's already happening. It started with the current forces that already has been there in those 5 strategic points throughout the border. We see some forces getting deeper to southern Lebanon. I think we will see more forces. And maybe even getting until the Litani River, which is a natural border. This is really the end of what we called southern Lebanon. But Israeli forces in the Litani River really keeps the northern border safe. I believe there's a good chance we will see that, yeah.
Okay, so what you just say, I think it's a little bit worrisome on my perspective because First of all, we see here like now there is a war with Iran. You just said that maybe there will be another war with Hezbollah on the northern border of Israel. We know that the Gulf countries are now being attacked. We don't know where this will evolve. I don't want to say that, but I will. Sounds like a world war.
I think the conflict or the armed conflicts will expand in some way. I don't think um, you know war with in Lebanon or any ground maneuver with the ground forces is really a big change from what we see right now. Um, I think I believe it's not going to expand to a world war right now because there are major players in the region that their number one interest is stability. Now, I don't know what will gonna happen tomorrow, right? You mentioned earlier that um, you hope we will still be relevant by the time this episode will be aired. I'm not sure we'll be relevant until we finish recording.
Yeah.
But as I see it, and when I look at the major players here, I believe um, the United States and Israel will go all the way until the Iranian regime will fall, and that alone will cause tectonic movement in the area. There's two big players, Saudi Arabia and Turkey. They are in a fight for the hegemony in the region. But if you look at Saudi Arabia, in order to be the superpower or the leader of the Arab world, um, they have to um, they have to improve their domestic economy. Um, and in order to do that, they need stability. Turkey, on the other hand, afraid or they are worried of a major crisis in Iran because complete fallout in Iran, um, meaning 9 or 10 million refugees doing their way to Turkey. This is not good for Erdogan. So the two major players in the region wants to take their place as the hegemon, but they also needs stability because their economies are not doing so well. So
What
I'm
do you
not
think they
sure.
will do? What do you think they will do?
Well, if we're looking on Turkey, Turkey is worried, as I've said, in the total collapse in Iran, but also, and this is a major thing we can see right now, it's the Kurdish national awakening. So the Kurdish are the biggest ethnic minority in the world that does not have its own uh, territory or country. They are located in Iran, Western Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Syria, mainly those areas. And in Turkey, after many, many years of armed conflict, Erdogan in 2025 finally managed to get an agreement with the Kurdish forces, mainly with the PKK militia, um, and even get them disarmed. This is a major achievement for Erdogan. I think he's afraid that Kurdish national awakening in Iraq and Iran will also affect the Kurdish forces in Turkey. I've mentioned before the IMEC, the corridor between India to Europe. One big player that does not appear in this plan is Turkey. Now, Erdogan see Turkey as the new Ottoman Empire, as the superpower of the region, as the connector between East and West. And him not being involved in this project drives him crazy. It's also affecting Turkey's economy very badly. So he has its own plan of a corridor between Iraq through Turkey to Europe, Kurdish awakening in Iraq, also damaging this project of Erdogan. So Erdogan wants stability. He wants Iran weak but stable. I guess there might be a chance that Erdogan will send forces to the eastern border just to to prevent a lot of the big migration from Iran and the Kurdish awakening.
Okay, so I hear a lot of like strategy and a lot of forces that are like pulling and pushing to get more strength, and in the middle of it is Israel, that for some reason is being attacked massively all through this time. And we really, our podcast is, our time is almost come to an end. So I really want to end with one last question. So you mentioned in one of your articles that the resilience of the Israeli society is a crucial component in every like decision, in every whether security decision or everything that the government is doing. And clearly now, after 2.5 years, that the Israeli society has been going in and out of shelters, as you just mentioned, and ballistic missiles are not the same as like the missiles that we used to see, because the ballistic missiles, not even going into shelter, not necessarily will protect you from these ballistic missiles. So I wonder, knowing that after this conversation, understanding that this is something that is much bigger than the Israeli state itself. Yes, we're eliminating the threat, but there are so many other players that are pulling and pushing, and it's such a strategic kind of move. So I wonder, what is the degree of the Israeli resilience currently, and how much credit will we have to continue this war from Israeli perspective?
I think from the perspective of just an Israeli average person, I think the resilience is very high. The biggest lesson that we've learned from October 7 is that if we're not actively handling with our threats, it can be on our borders or in the far, like 2,000 kilometers from Israel. If we're not actively getting into a conflict with them and address them, we're gonna get it in our back door. And that lesson is so well learned in the Israeli society that I think, and again, it's not the perspective of a researcher or a reserve officer, nothing like that. Every Israeli understands that if we're not being active, we will be attacked once more. This is our neighborhood. This is our life. and for that, I think the resilience is and the willing to endure this situation is very, very high.
So glad that you said it. Do you think it's the last war? Our last war? So you're saying it's not the last time that the Israel is gonna run into shelter?
I guess it's not our last episode. Well, I hope that with the new doctrine, and yes, we're seeing a new security doctrine is being shaped and created in the Israeli security system. With that, I think no, it's not the last time, but I hope I can say we're not going to get to shelters anytime soon because we're handling that.
Okay, great. I love this optimistic-ish approach. And thank you so much, Omri, for being with us today and trying to unlock this very, very complex. I feel that we only met the tip of the iceberg of this super complex. It's not only about Israel. It's not only about existential threat on Israel. It's much more complex. It's economically a lot of forces pulling and pushing. Super interesting. I guess we'll have another episode sometime soon to when we'll see where this war is going to. So anyway, for today, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Omri. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Israeli Bond on hmTv, the Israel Today mini-series. I appreciate my guest, Omri Goshen, for sharing some insights about the second Iran war that we're currently experiencing and how this it's going to change the entire area that we live in. If you enjoyed exploring the information, history, and stories of today's conversation, be sure to check out our other podcasts here on hmTv. Please subscribe, share, and stay connected for more engaging conversations. Until next time, take care and be well.